military path to success, meaning they could not win on the battlefield. Occasionally, Putin would stir the nuclear pot. He would hold drills with nuclear weapons, put his nuke responses on alert, and this spooked Western powers. They backed away from giving long-range weapons to Ukraine. They told Zelensky, defend, do not attack. In late 2024, they finally changed their position. They allowed Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia, but by then it was too late. Russia already had the upper hand. So Putin's nuclear rhetoric had a very clear objective: to keep Western support to a minimum. And this ensured that there would be only two outcomes in this war: either a Russian military victory or a negotiated settlement. The possibility of a Ukrainian military victory was removed. It's like a cricket team batting long in a test match. The idea is not always to win. It is to ensure that the other side can only draw or lose. The second thing that Putin did right was handling the economy. Russia is under some 24,000 sanctions, 24,000, yet the economy is stable. When the West ditched him, Putin turned east. He began selling oil to India and China. He also marketed Russian weapons to the global south, which kept his treasury full. Putin also invested in the BRICS. This used to be an alliance of 5 nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, 5 countries. But after the war, it has expanded. Today, the BRICS has 10 members, and together they're looking to upend the global order, maybe create alternatives to the Western system. And finally, the third thing that Putin did right: he did not pitch this war as some good versus evil fight. He was very clear: this is strategic for me. I have some demands and concerns. I'm ready to talk. If you agree to them, I will end the war. Which is what's happening right now. The West categorically rejected diplomacy with Vladimir Putin, but Putin did not rule it out. He never did it. He always kept the door open for talks, almost betting that some interesting party would eventually come in. And that party was Donald Trump.
I think that President Putin and President Zelensky are going to have to get together, because you know what? We want to stop killing millions of people.
So to put it simply, Putin played the long game. He was not in any hurry to take Kiev and plant the Russian flag there. In fact, you have to wonder if he ever wanted to occupy the whole country, or whether he just wanted to break up Ukraine. So instead of rushing, Putin waited. He watched as the energy prices spiraled out of control, as wheat and fertilizer supplies shrank, as inflation skyrocketed, as political opposition built in the West, as Donald Trump launched his campaign, as incumbent Western leaders faced abysmal approvals, as the far right surged in Europe, and as Trump retook the White House. It was a masterclass in strategic patience. But at the heart of it, it was a simple principle: who wanted it more? Did Putin want a neutral Ukraine more than the West wanted a NATO Ukraine? That was the question. Putin bet early on that the answer was yes, that he wanted a neutral Ukraine more. So, of course, a peace deal has not been struck yet. But as things stand, 3 years later, it looks like Vladimir Putin is having the last laugh, that his risky bet has paid off. And he's not done yet. He has a number of options to choose from. He could push Trump for more concessions, he could stretch out the talks to gain more land on the battlefield, or he could risk another gamble. I mean, Trump has already shown his hand. He wants to end this war ASAP. But if he cannot strike a deal, what will he do? Will he cut off military aid anyway? If he does, Putin could triumph on the battlefield. I'm not saying he'll do that. I'm saying that he has the option of doing that. And don't forget the broader realignment. Until now, Europe depended on the US for security, but Trump is removing that umbrella. He says Europe should take the lead in defending itself. It's a position that is catching on in America. This is a country with a history of isolationism. So it's not surprising that Americans want to stay out of Europe, which is again advantage Putin. An isolationist US means a weaker NATO. A weaker NATO means weak transatlantic ties, and weak transatlantic ties is good news for Vladimir Putin. He can assert his influence more freely. So all in all, it's a good time to be in the Kremlin. Things are shaping up nicely for Putin. Having said that, let's not forget a few things. One, it is easy for Putin to deploy strategic patience. He doesn't have to worry about voters turning against him, or worse, voting him out. That security allows him to wait the bad times out, a luxury that democratic leaders do not have. Secondly, Putin was right in his assessment. That doesn't mean that his actions were also right. Waging war is not acceptable. Ukraine is a sovereign country that can make its own choices. Russia cannot dictate terms to them. Yes, it is true that Zelensky played hardball, but war cannot be the answer. And finally, Putin's focus on Ukraine may have cost him elsewhere. His ally Bashar al-Assad was toppled in Syria, mainly because Russian air support was missing. Plus, he's got 2 new NATO members on his doorstep now, Finland and Sweden. Both countries were neutral, but after Russia's invasion, they've joined NATO. This once again shows how complex geopolitics is. A win is never absolute, and a loss is not always complete failure. It's a question of maximizing what is good for you and minimizing the negative fallouts. In Ukraine, Putin has done the former. He has maximized his gains. Meanwhile, the West is scrambling to do damage control.